Okay, Siobhan, good to have you with me. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, an 18-month journey, September 2023. It it's been a great journey for you. And like any entrepreneurial journey, it has its highs and lows. And I wanted to put this call together to give coaches kind of an idea of your journey, what it takes, what you've actually been able to build, and then what takeaways as an entrepreneur yourself that you could feed and share to other people. Now, go back to 2023 and I'd just like to know first and foremost, how did you get into coaching and what was your journey like before you even reached out to us for help?
So, condensed as much as possible, why I got into coaching is I went through my own transformation over a number of years. I actually worked corporate for 10 plus years, and I was building up my kind of like fitness on my own journey for a long time. And then I realized a lot of people were asking me, how are you doing this, and asking for my advice, to the point where I was like, I need to start making money out of this. I need to leave the corporate world. So over time, I say over time, it was pretty much in the space of a year, moved from corporate to coaching after getting my qualifications. Before joining you
So did
guys,
you
I was
did you
actually
get
with
did you get your PT your qualifications while you were in corporate?
yeah.
Good on
So
you. Yeah,
same
amazing.
year, same year qualifications, and then built my client base up alongside working for like a FTSE 100 corporate grind company, and then transitioned coaching
Can
full
I
time.
touch on that for a second? How many hours a day was your kind of footsie corporate role? And how did you manage? Because here's the thing, there are people that are either doing 40, 45 hours of PT a week that are stacked and they said, I don't have any time. Or there are people that, are qualified and just desperate. Maybe they're doing a bit of PT at the weekend with some friends, just desperate to leave. How did you fit all that in time-wise that everybody says they haven't got?
It was tough. I was contracted at 8 a.m. till 5:30 for most of the time. I worked then Monday to Friday, and obviously you do extra hours as well. No lunch break, no nothing. And that was just the time I had to be in the office. And so I had to get up at 5 o'clock and do the work beforehand, and come home and do the work after. And I didn't have weekends, weren't weekends. So for a long time, I was just like, this is where I want to get to. You have to lock in for 6 months or whatever it is, get the job done, and move out as quickly as possible.
Wow. Well, September 23, you'd obviously, where have you got yourself to on your own, online wise?
So I was with another mentorship, and we'd got to around about 12 to 14
Yeah.
pay over time. And I left them, was on my own for a while. And that's when I joined your program at around about that mark.
Cool, cool. And at that point when you came in, what do you remember as the primary needle movers for you and the strategy that gave you some differentiation that you were either in the right place or this was the next step that you needed? What were some of the things you did?
So for me, I knew that my systems were okay. They were good for like a 12 to 14K, but I was running myself into the ground. I didn't have my team set up properly. And basically, initially, what you guys taught me is how to go from a coach who pretended that she had a business with a couple of people working with her to an entrepreneur who understood the back end system of the business. And even down to the point where I didn't know my figures. I knew my revenue, but I didn't know anything else about how it all kind of came together in the background. So that was the biggest thing for me.
So I guess obviously corporate job made the money, got to 12 to 14. And look, I'll be the first one to say that whilst I want to help people make money, the longevity of the business, and we'll delve into this a little bit more, is a coach needs to accept that when they come into a proper mentorship, like we believe that we are, and they have everything analyzed, you have to look at that and go, shit, there's a few things I need to fix. Systems, KPIs, targets. What's your perspective on that stuff maybe not being that sexy? And how necessary was it for you to be able to take control and develop the entrepreneurial skills?
Well, it might not be sexy, but you're not going to get the sexy stuff without looking at that. Like you will be capped at where you are if you don't know how to improve your systems, if you don't have a seamless machine, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know, all of the basics of how your ship runs fundamentally. If you don't clear that up, you'll always be capped at that number, and you'll be capped with your time as well, because you'll always be chasing your ass.
Love that. Well, I mean, we'll talk about kind of where the business has been at its peak, where we are roughly right now. What has been more so the first, say, 6 to 12 months of what gave you the biggest revenue growth? What gave you the biggest time back? What were some of the things you've actually implemented, either tactically or system wise, into the business that helped you to see that consistent level of growth?
I think really dialing into what my strengths are and channeling into that. So I understand how everything fundamentally works in the business, but I know that my responsibilities, and I remember you saying really early on what your responsibilities were in your business. And so if I can hyper focus on them, which is predominantly training the team and looking at sales, looking at marketing, looking at strategy, and then delegating to other people, that will leverage so much more time to excel and to push forward. That was a huge thing in the first 6 months for me.
And do you think that, I mean, you weren't short-sighted. You realized that some of this stuff takes time. And there's a lot of coaches that want that immediate growth straight away. Um, what was it within your own mindset? Was it coming from a corporate background? Was it coming from a little bit more appreciative of the time it can take, almost a little bit of delayed gratification to put the systems in place to then see those stepping stones of growth? And what would you say to somebody that's kind of like, it's not taking a step backwards, but you've got to fix some fundamental things before the ship takes off?
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, I love growth, like, and I want to see myself get better all the time. And sometimes I do want to like run before I can walk. But I spoke to a lot of other people in my position, a lot of people further on than me when it came specifically to revenue. And I was seeing this pattern all the time that they would smash their revenue super high and then it would come crashing down because they didn't have the system in place. And that would cause mass anxiety, mass stress. Their business was all over the place. They couldn't pay their staff. And I kept seeing this happen. And I was like, I'll be damned if I'm working this hard to hit a figure to then be, half that revenue the following month. We have to make sure that everything's sound so there's longevity in the business.
And what would you say from a team perspective, therefore, that you focused on that's given you that concrete confidence that the business is able to scale from a team and a leadership perspective? I think this is key.
From a leadership perspective, I have had to learn so much about emotional stability. And you do have to take your team on the journey when you're going through the highs and lows so they're aware, but you have to show up for your team and be an incredible leader if you want them to perform. If you're anxious, if your business is all over the place, if you're in a high state of emotion, stress, snapping, your team are going to follow suit. So you have to do so much inner work as well on becoming emotionally stable to be able to run a business to the figures that you probably want to run it to.
I love that. Well, listen, 12 to 14K. I know a lot of people watching this right now are going to be like, what was Siobhan's highest month? What is Siobhan's most consistent months? And from a revenue perspective, what is what is what have you implemented in the business that's enabled you to get to where you are? The reality is there's been some big months, which happens in business. There's been consistent months. There's been lower months. What's been the highest? Because I think that gives an idea of kind of peak business. And then what's a consistent?
So the highest has been about 44K.
Yeah,
And then the average, I would say right now, if we're looking at the last 6 months, is about 30K.
cool. So we've gone like 12 to 14 to 30K. What's played the biggest pivotal role of going, and let's just talk money now. what's been the most pivotal thing, whether it's pricing, whether it's lead generation, whether it's outreach and hiring the right people? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the things that helped you double your revenue and have like a treble revenue highest month. What are the kind of tactical and systems things or team things that have contributed to that happening? Because naturally people want to know what's helped the money move forward.
Yeah, there's been so many if I reflect back over all of that time. So the first thing that I really doubled down on, and I'm always trying to learn, is my sales ability. So being able to close the call, we did a lot of work together over the months to make sure that I really nailed that down. And to be honest, even now I'm like, I feel like I'm stepping into my prime with that.
Yeah.
So that's I'm really believing your product, like backing yourself. Um, the other thing is the team. And now again, I feel like I'm stepping into like this next level of nailing my sales team and having a strong appointment setter, a strong system, a sales closer coming up with me. That's so important. That's so important. And if you don't have a setter, making sure that you're doing that role to the absolute best of your ability, because it's one of the most important roles in the entire business. In fact, the most important role.
Okay, quick question on that. What's the things you've done wrong with hiring setters? Because do you know what, Siobhan, for you to say developing a setter and you've had a high of 40K months and consistent over 30K months, a lot of people would be like, oh, don't want setters, da, 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 I think it's a load of crap. Like, first thing is, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about working and hiring a setter and how valuable they are? Let's cover that to start with.
So the first thing is training them, giving them so much help, time, patience. The second biggest learning for me, and this is huge, is your setter is not admin. They're not an admin role, they are a sales role. So you need someone in there who is a hustler and who wants to make money just as much as you. That setter cannot be doing another job. They need to be primarily your setter, not your PA or your coach or something like that. They really do need to be 100% in that role, in my
I love
opinion.
that. Now, sales is another thing, and I love sales. If I could teach sales every single week to you guys, I would, but you need to learn other stuff. But sales is something that requires reps, it requires a framework, and it requires being constantly analyzing what you're doing. What would you say are one or two things that you've taken away the most about sales that have impacted your ability to sell with confidence?
Um, the first one, as I touched on before, is like being 100% confident about your product, like going into that sales call and being like, and I believe this, I can change your life. I can change your life. If you take it forward or not, it's not going to impact my life forever, but I will impact yours. If you really believe that, you should believe that if you're a good coach.
Yeah.
And so that's massively. The other thing is I am always refining my sales process. I'm listening to what people are saying. I'm saying something back to them. I'm seeing how it lands. I'm looking at their reaction. I'm going, oh, that worked. And then the next sales call, I'll add that in. So it's something that I'm always tweaking and refining over
So
time.
you can't expect to study a sales framework, nail it, and or think you've nailed it, or looking at a sales process such as when a call is booked all the way through to delivery of a call and taking the money and onboarding a client, you can constantly improve it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. There will be certain things within sales that you'll study and that will work for sure. But there are ways that you will learn to deliver things as your authentic self that will work very well with your audience. And you have to pick up on those and you have to watch your sales calls back, go over it and over it and over it until you perfect your way of doing it.
I I haven't asked anybody this on a call before, but I feel it's so important to ask it to you. You have an unbelievable level of maturity coming from corporate as well, and just as a person. And I respect that immensely. And if we can work with more emotionally stable people, like yourself, it makes the coaching part so much easier because You don't rattle when there's something wrong. Well, you rattle like we all would rattle, but you don't break down. You're resilient and you're stable, which is an example to what maybe younger fitness coaches and even older fitness coaches that are less emotionally stable. But it inspires me because no matter how many times I speak to Simon, he said, Siobhan's in a tough spot, but she will not give up. Right. And she'll fix it, she'll solve it, and then she'll come back. And it's testament to what you're doing. The business that you want revenue wise, it's there and you have that optimism. Where was that emotional stability developed? How have you developed it? Because you've been with us 18 months. And if I go back to when you first joined to where it is now, it is very, very different. So it is something inside Scale that I'm so proud of, the fact that we make sure that that's something we talk about. It's something that we address. It's something that we make as a solid promise to our clients that we're going to help you build a solid, stable business here for years to come. So, what would your advice be on emotional stability and how you have regulated how you handle the pressure that you go through with the ups and downs of business?
I think that one of the biggest things is, with the more times you kind of get knocked, you realize that you're going to come back. And I'm sure, as hard as it is to say, there's going to be times that I face in the future that are even harder than I've faced to date. But the more you can kind of build that resilience of it's okay, because that last thing that happened that was really fucking hard, I got over that. So this one's going to be okay. And you have two options. You can either start to spiral and get upset and internalize it and take it personally, but business is business. It's not actually you. It's the
Yeah,
business,
I love that. Yeah. Wow.
it's
Very,
so.
very valuable. Did I cut you off? My apologies.
No, I'm done.
No, no, no. Perfect. That was just said so well. I appreciate that. Now, I'd love you to share your lessons. That emotional stability bit was a big, big one. And for a lot of coaches, like you were saying, who are young or inexperienced in business, because you could be older and inexperienced in business, and so those rocks, highs and lows, come at all ages if you've not been doing it very long and not experienced it. So you've got to get punched in the face a few times and expect it. But what would be a big key lesson um, that you say that you found in this scaling process that you could share with a coach?
There's probably a couple. So the first is, you have to hire help in every single stage that you get to. Like your first 5k is going to be different to your first 15k. You're going to need someone to get you to the next level each time. Same way as you would say to a client, you might hear a lot of times they're like, oh, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. But you don't, respectfully, otherwise you would have nailed it yourself. Or it might take you 20 years to get there, whereas you could hire help and get there a lot more efficiently. So I think it's important that you hire the right people that have walked the walk, not somebody who's a coach or whatever else. Like, they have built a business, and a sustainable business. And the second thing is, there's literally no way of sugarcoating this. It's going to be hard work. And as soon as you can accept that and go, right, I'm going to have to fucking double down for the next however many months, and sit with the grit, the better. Because unfortunately, there's not going to be a great work-life balance in the beginning. You're not going to have an abundance of time to spend with your friends or whatever else. But that's the trade-off of getting to where you want to be. And I think there's a lot of stuff in the social media space at the moment that is very balanced and airy fairy, but it's not real. Realistically, you are going to have to graft to get to where you want to be.
I love that. And I think that, a lot of people do avoid social media and saying that it's tough, that it's challenging, because ultimately what people want to hear is you can make this amount of money. But the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, the emotional instability is one of the big things about joining a scale program and enjoying any degree of joining any degree of mentorship that isn't just about the cash, because you can blinker the emotions that come with business and go straight up to 40K months. And then when you get up there and get punched in the face, you haven't built those layers of resilience. Um, at, you've come from 5K to 50 to 10K to 20K to 30K and up to 40K. Out of all of those levels, what are some of the biggest devils that you faced at each level? And just actually pick one of them, whether it was 5K, 10K, 20K, 30K. What is a devil you faced at a level and how have you come through it?
I think when you start to get into, and this isn't sexy, but when you start to get into the bigger amounts of revenue, you have to know exactly what is, and you always do, but even more importantly, you have to know what is going on in your back end, because it's so easy to start going, oh, I've hit 20, 30, 40K months, whatever. What's going on with your profit? What's going on with the people you're paying? Like, where is all of that money going? You have to be so intricate with what's going on in the background. And I think, if I'm honest, when I got to the higher months, there was a stage where I neglected that and got, not that I'm flashy or anything, but I got carried away with the spend.
Really?
And you have to be so careful. You've got a big business, you've got a business now, you're not a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have an overview of everything, just like any big company would do.
That's hugely valuable. Something that no one's ever really shared with an interview that I've done before is to don't get complacent with the money and start flashing it. Because I got told this many times, but the money in the business, regardless of where you live in the world, is not yours. And one thing I've always done, I expect bad months, but I have a cash float that allows us to last at least 6 months minimum. And the reason I do is because it allows me to sleep at night. I remember an investor said to me once, let's take out this dump of cash that you've got and let's put it all here. And I said, that makes me a volatile, emotional entrepreneur. I would rather not invest it and watch it grow. I'd rather it sit there with low interest in the bank, potentially losing money, but give me the confidence than I would do. Some people on the flip side go, I've got all that money, I'll spend it. It's a lesson that sometimes people like you spent it and you got a bit crazy with it, and then you have to learn the lesson. I think some people they have to go down a bit to then come back out. That's probably one of the most valuable things someone said in an interview. So I really, really thank you for it. You're on an amazing journey. You've got an amazing business, amazing team. You've got a great service, by the way, great community. And I just want to touch on that before we leave, because we've talked about revenue and service and everything. But as we move into 2025, we're in 2025, as we move through 2025 with the AI revolution and everything is coming in, and whilst it's amazing, it's going to help us all, community and service delivery, what have you done that's created your community, and how important has that been to the retention of the clients in the program? And especially for anybody here who's thinking, oh, AI is going to take over, like, you've got a powerful community, your clients aren't going anywhere. What have you done, and what is a bit of words of wisdom about building a community, whether it's photo shoots or whatever, that really plays a big part in how the brand's building?
I think that's a really important thing to touch on, because a lot of people are actually scared of AI, and AI is my best friend. Like, I
Yeah.
use it every day. It's an amazing tool, and it should only, serve your business, but it doesn't get rid of the need. And I think the need now is more prevalent than ever of community. People want to feel part of something. They want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. And so with all the women in our community, we do a lot of different initiatives, including from the small things to in our group chats throughout the week, making sure that people are sharing struggles and wins, announcing different things, sharing ideas, recipes, that kind of thing, all the way through to every year having a big live event that everyone comes to, and having guest speakers,
Okay,
and
cool.
like just making sure that people connect. photo shoots are massive for us. We do it twice a year, and we create that kind of scarcity with them as well. So people really want to take part, and then we have a waiting list to get on for 2026. So it's really important, even the small things like walks, when people come together, they're like, didn't realize how much I needed that.
Oh, wow, that's
So
wonderful.
yeah,
That's going to happen huge, isn't it? It's going to happen as we grow. We build better communities. And I've always got to keep thinking, what do we do for Coaching Concierge? How do we make the events more exciting? You saw recently I did a scale one and brought everybody together. It's so important. Siobhan, you've done amazing. You've been with us 18 months. We look forward to the journey and everything that's to come. But you've got a great business, and I'm just grateful that you shared your lessons with anybody else who's privileged enough to end up watching this video. So thank you.
thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.